There is a story from ancient Rome that few people remember, yet it reveals a truth that millions still struggle to learn. Imagine standing in the heart of the Roman Forum before sunrise. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp stone and burning oil lamps. Merchants are only beginning to open their stalls. Soldiers march across the cobblestones in perfect rhythm. Senators whisper in corners where every smile hides an ambition and every handshake conceals a calculation. Power lives here, so does manipulation. In this city, people did not always conquer with swords. Many conquered with words. A compliment could be a trap, a promise could be a chain, even friendship could become a transaction. Among these people walked a man who ruled the greatest empire on earth, Marcus Aurelius. He possessed wealth beyond imagination, commanded armies that stretched across continents, and carried authority that could change the fate of nations with a single decision. Yet the greatest battle he fought was not against barbarian tribes. It was against invisible enemies: flattery, fear, anger, approval, expectation. Every day, powerful men tried to influence him. Some appealed to his pride, others exploited his compassion. Some used fear to force quick decisions, others disguised selfish desires as wise advice. Marcus understood something that most people never discover. The strongest prison is not built from iron. It is built inside the mind. And once another person learns how to control your emotions, they no longer need chains. They simply pull invisible strings. Centuries have passed since Rome fell. The marble temples have crumbled. The emperors have become dust. Yet manipulation has never disappeared. It has merely changed its clothing. Today it arrives through glowing screens instead of palace halls. It hides inside carefully chosen words, inside social media, inside toxic relationships, inside workplaces where praise is used as bait, inside friendships where guilt replaces honesty, inside families where love is confused with control. Most people never notice. They believe they are making free choices. But many of those choices were quietly planted by someone else. Think about the last time someone made you feel guilty for protecting your own peace. Think about the last argument that kept replaying in your mind long after it ended. Think about the moment you changed your opinion, not because you believed differently, but because you feared rejection. That is where manipulation begins, not with force, with emotion. Psychologists have long understood a simple truth. Human beings rarely make decisions through logic alone. We act through feelings first, then we invent reasons afterward. Manipulators know this instinctively. They do not need to overpower your body. They only need to provoke your emotions, make you angry, and your judgment weakens, make you afraid, and your confidence disappears, make you desperate for approval, and your freedom quietly leaves through the back door. This is why some people always seem calm, while everyone else is trapped in emotional storms. It is not because life treats them differently. It is because they refuse to hand over the steering wheel of their mind. Imagine standing beside a mountain during a violent storm. Rain lashes the cliffs. Thunder shakes the earth. Trees bend until they nearly break. The storm screams with all its strength. Yet the mountain does not argue with the wind. It does not panic. It does not chase the clouds away. It simply remains. That is the Stoic ideal. Not becoming emotionless, becoming unmovable. There is a profound difference. An emotionless person feels nothing. A Stoic feels everything, but chooses what deserves a response. Most people react. Few people decide. That difference determines who controls the conversation, who controls the relationship,
who controls the future.
Perhaps this is why Epictetus, born into slavery, eventually became one of history's greatest teachers. His body belonged to another man. His mind never did. He understood that freedom begins long before circumstances change. It begins the moment someone can no longer dictate your inner world. Imagine possessing that kind of strength. Someone insults you. Instead of carrying those words for weeks, they dissolve the moment they arrive. Someone ignores your message. Instead of inventing painful stories inside your head, you return to your purpose. Someone tries to provoke you publicly. Instead of defending your ego, you protect your peace. How different would your life become? how much energy would you recover? How many unnecessary battles would simply disappear? Most people spend years trying to control other people. The Stoics spent their lives mastering themselves. One path creates endless conflict. The other creates unshakable freedom. Yet there is one hidden danger. Manipulation rarely announces itself. It often arrives disguised as kindness, as opportunity, as romance, as success, as belonging. That is why intelligent people are manipulated every single day. Knowledge alone is not enough. You must learn to recognize the invisible hooks before they catch your attention. Because attention is your greatest currency. Where your attention goes, your life quietly follows. And perhaps the greatest irony of all is this: the person who cannot be manipulated is not the loudest in the room, not the strongest, not the richest, not even the smartest. It is the person who has learned to govern the only kingdom that truly belongs to them, their own mind. But how did the Stoics develop such extraordinary inner freedom in a world filled with politics, betrayal, temptation, and constant uncertainty? And more importantly, can those same principles protect you in a world designed to capture your attention, exploit your emotions, and influence every decision you make? That is the journey we begin now. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling strangely exhausted, only to realize hours later that you had been persuaded to doubt yourself? Perhaps someone dismissed your opinion so subtly that you questioned your own judgment. Perhaps they made you feel guilty for setting a healthy boundary. Or maybe they convinced you that your peace was selfish while their demands were reasonable. These moments seem small, but over time, they become the invisible chains that shape an entire life. The Stoics understood this danger long before the modern world filled our pockets with smartphones and our minds with endless distractions. They knew that the greatest threat to a person's freedom was rarely an invading army. It was the quiet surrender of their own judgment. Today, manipulation has become more sophisticated than ever. Companies compete for your attention every second. Social media platforms are designed to trigger emotional reactions because emotional people spend more time scrolling. Advertisements promise happiness if you buy one more product. Toxic individuals learn exactly which words make you feel guilty, insecure, or afraid. The battlefield has changed. Human nature has not. Every notification asks for your attention. Every opinion asks for your agreement. Every criticism asks for your emotional reaction. Without realizing it, many people spend their entire lives responding instead of choosing. The Stoics offered another way. They never promised an easy life. They promised a free mind. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that he would encounter selfishness, arrogance, dishonesty, envy, and ignorance. He did not write these reflections because he was pessimistic. He wrote them because preparation weakens surprise. When you expect challenges, they lose the power to control you. Imagine waking up every day, already knowing that someone may misunderstand you. Someone may criticize you. Someone may attempt to manipulate your emotions. Instead of being shocked, you remain steady. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of becoming another victim of emotion, you become the master of your response. That is where true strength begins. Not in your muscles, not in your bank account, not in your reputation, but in the quiet space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Modern psychology now confirms what the Stoics practiced over 2,000 years ago. Our brains naturally react before they reflect. Fear, anger, and insecurity can hijack our thinking in an instant. But with awareness and deliberate practice, we can interrupt that pattern and choose a wiser response. This is why Stoicism is not merely ancient philosophy. It is practical psychology for everyday life. It teaches you to recognize emotional traps before you fall into them, to see through manipulation without becoming bitter, to remain compassionate without becoming naive, to protect your peace without building walls around your heart. Over the next few lessons, we will explore 10 Stoic principles that can help you become someone who is difficult to manipulate, not because you become cold or detached, but because your inner foundation becomes too strong to be shaken by every opinion, every insult, or every attempt to control you. You'll discover why silence often holds more power than arguments. Why seeking approval quietly gives others authority over your life. Why your attention is your greatest asset. Why mastering your emotions is the ultimate form of strength. And why the final lesson may completely change how you see yourself and the people around you. By the end of this journey, you won't simply understand Stoicism. You'll begin to see the invisible forces that shape your decisions every day, and more importantly, you'll learn how to reclaim ownership of your own mind. Because the person who cannot be manipulated is not fearless. They simply refuse to let fear make their choices. Before we continue to the first lesson, if you're enjoying this journey into timeless Stoic wisdom, take a moment to support the channel. Leave a like if you believe inner strength matters more than outward appearance. Subscribe for more original Stoic lessons on mental resilience, emotional mastery, and ancient wisdom for modern life. Share this video with someone who could benefit from becoming mentally stronger. And in the comments, tell me, what does true freedom mean to you? I read your thoughts, and your reflections often inspire future videos. Now, let's begin with the first and perhaps most misunderstood principle of becoming impossible to manipulate. Because it all starts with learning the difference between reacting and responding. Lesson 1. The pause that breaks every chain. There is an old image that captures the heart of Stoicism. Picture an experienced archer standing in complete silence. His target is far away. The wind shifts without warning. The crowd behind him whispers, hoping he will fail. Every distraction invites him to release the arrow too soon. Yet he does nothing. Not because he is uncertain, because he understands that one careless movement can ruin everything. Your mind is much like that archer. Every day, countless forces try to make you react before you think. A rude comment, a harsh email, a mocking laugh, a message left unanswered, a post on social media that challenges your beliefs. Each one whispers the same command: react now. Most people obey without noticing. The Stoic does not. One of the greatest lessons from Epictetus begins with a simple truth. Although he was born into slavery, he discovered a freedom no master could take away. He recognized that while others could influence his circumstances, they could not force him to choose his response. This insight became the foundation of his teaching. He urged his students to distinguish between what lies within their control and what does not. While he never claimed emotions could be erased, he showed that our judgments about events shape the emotions that follow. That single realization changes everything. Imagine someone insults you in front of your colleagues. The ordinary mind hears the words and immediately burns with anger. The heartbeat quickens. The face tightens. Thoughts race. How dare they? I need to prove them wrong. Within seconds, the other person is no longer controlling only the conversation. They are controlling your emotional state. Without realizing it, you have handed them the keys to your inner world. The Stoic chooses another path. He notices the first wave of emotion. He does not deny it. He observes it. He asks himself, must I obey this feeling? That tiny pause is almost invisible, yet it separates wisdom from impulse. Modern psychology describes something remarkably similar. When emotions surge, the brain prepares the body to act immediately. This reaction helped our ancestors survive danger. But in everyday life, the same instinct often causes us to exaggerate threats, misunderstand intentions, and say words we later regret. The Stoics practiced interrupting that automatic cycle, not by suppressing emotion, by creating space between emotion and action. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself to examine impressions before accepting them as truth. A criticism was not automatically an attack. A delay was not automatically rejection. A setback was not automatically failure. He refused to let first impressions become final conclusions. Consider how often manipulation depends on speed. Someone pressures you to make an instant decision. Someone says, if you really cared, you'd do it right now. Someone demands an answer before you've had time to think. Urgency becomes a weapon. The manipulator fears your reflection more than your resistance. Because once you pause, their influence weakens. Imagine a calm lake at dawn. Throw a stone into the water and the surface ripples wildly. Try to see your reflection then, and it appears distorted. But if you wait, the water becomes still again. Only then can you see clearly. Your mind works the same way. A disturbed mind cannot judge wisely. This is why silence is not weakness. It is preparation. In today's world, this lesson is more valuable than ever. Social media rewards immediate outrage. Arguments spread faster than understanding. People rush to respond before they fully read. Entire reputations are built or destroyed in moments of emotional impulse. The Stoic asks a different question. Will this matter a year from now? If the answer is no, why surrender your peace today? Think about relationships. How many unnecessary conflicts begin because someone reacts to the tone of a message instead of asking for clarity? How many friendships end because pride speaks before patience? How many careers are damaged by one angry reply sent in the heat of emotion? Often the greatest victories are invisible. They are the words you chose not to say, the argument you refused to continue, the insult you allowed to fade without giving it a permanent place in your mind. This is not passivity. It is mastery. A person who reacts to everything is easy to predict, and anyone who is predictable is easier to manipulate. But the person who remains calm becomes difficult to control. Others cannot pull emotional strings that are no longer attached. The next time someone tries to provoke you, resist the urge to answer immediately. Take one slow breath. Observe your thoughts without believing every one of them. Ask yourself, am I choosing this response, or is someone else choosing it for me? That single question may save you from countless regrets, because the first victory over manipulation is never won in a debate. It is won in the silent moment before you decide how to respond. And yet mastering your reactions is only the beginning. Many people learn to stay calm, but they still spend their lives trapped by a far more subtle prison. A prison built not from anger, but from the desperate need to be liked. That is where our next lesson begins. Lesson 2, the trap of seeking approval. There is an invisible cage that has imprisoned people for thousands of years. It has no iron bars, no locked doors, no guards standing watch, yet millions willingly step inside it every single day. It is the desire to be approved by everyone. At first it feels harmless. You want people to like you. You want your family to understand you. You want your friends to admire you. You want strangers to respect your opinions. There is nothing wrong with appreciating acceptance. The danger begins when approval becomes a necessity instead of a gift. The moment your happiness depends on another person's opinion, they quietly gain power over your decisions. The Stoics saw this long before the age of likes, followers, and endless notifications. Imagine the streets of Athens, where Socrates walked among merchants, politicians, and young students. His questions challenged comfortable beliefs. He exposed contradictions that many preferred to ignore. Some admired him, while others mocked and despised him. If Socrates had sought universal approval, he would have abandoned his search for truth. Instead, he chose something greater. He chose integrity over popularity. That choice eventually cost him his life. When he was brought before the Athenian court, he had an opportunity to flatter the judges, soften his words, and beg for mercy. History tells us he did not. He defended his commitment to philosophy because he believed living dishonestly was a greater punishment than dying honestly. Whether people praised him or condemned him no longer determined his actions. His conscience did. That is the essence of Stoic freedom. Modern psychology gives this tendency a name: social approval bias. Human beings naturally want to belong because, for most of history, belonging meant survival. Being rejected by the tribe could mean death. Although our world has changed, our brains still react as if every disagreement threatens our existence. This is why criticism can feel so painful. It is not merely about words. It is an ancient survival instinct. Manipulative people understand this, even if they cannot explain it. They know that guilt is powerful. They know that shame can silence truth. They know that many people would rather betray themselves than disappoint someone else. Have you ever agreed with something you secretly disagreed with just to avoid conflict? Have you ever apologized even though you knew you had done nothing wrong? Have you ever said yes when every part of you wanted to say no? If so, you have experienced the cost of seeking approval. Marcus Aurelius faced a different version of this challenge. As emperor, every decision created both supporters and critics. No matter what he chose, someone would accuse him of weakness, cruelty, or incompetence. Imagine trying to satisfy millions of people whose interests constantly collide. It would be impossible. Marcus understood that leadership demanded something more important than popularity. It demanded character. He reminded himself that another person's judgment belongs to them, while his own conduct belongs to him. This lesson is just as relevant today. Think about social media. One thoughtful post receives hundreds of compliments. Then one stranger leaves a cruel comment. Which one occupies your thoughts for the rest of the day? For most people, it is the criticism. One negative voice becomes louder than 100 kind ones. That is not reality. It is the mind's tendency to magnify perceived threats. The Stoics trained themselves to recognize this illusion. Instead of asking, "Do they approve of me?" they asked, "Did I act according to my principles?" Notice how different those questions are. The first gives your peace away. The second keeps it within your control. Imagine carrying a compass through a dense forest. The weather changes. People shout conflicting directions. Some insist you are lost. Others claim there is an easier path. But if your compass remains true, you continue forward without panic. Your values are that compass. Without them, every opinion becomes a new destination. With them, criticism becomes information, not a command. This does not mean ignoring advice. The Stoics welcomed correction when it revealed truth. But they refused to let fear of rejection determine their identity. There is tremendous peace in realizing that not everyone has to understand you. Not everyone has to agree with you. Not everyone has to like you. Some people will misunderstand your silence as weakness. Others will mistake your boundaries for arrogance. Some will leave simply because you stopped allowing them to control you. Let them. A tree does not stop growing because someone dislikes its shade. In the same way, your purpose should not shrink to fit another person's expectations. The strongest people are not those who are loved by everyone. They are those who remain faithful to what is right, even when applause disappears. So, the next time you feel the urge to earn someone's approval, pause and ask yourself, am I living according to my values, or am I performing for someone else's expectations? Your answer may reveal whether you are walking toward freedom or quietly stepping back into the invisible cage. And once you begin to escape the need for approval, another extraordinary transformation becomes possible. You stop wasting energy trying to convince people. Instead, you discover the quiet strength of silence itself. Lesson 3. Silence is the mind's greatest shield. There is a scene that ancient writers often associated with wisdom. A crowded marketplace buzzes with voices. Merchants bargain loudly, politicians compete for attention, philosophers debate in public squares, while curious listeners gather around them. Everyone wants to be heard. Yet in the middle of all the noise stands one person who says almost nothing. He watches. He listens. He notices what everyone else misses. That quiet observer often understands the crowd better than the crowd understands itself. The Stoics believed silence was never empty. It was a form of discipline. Most people think power belongs to the one who speaks the loudest. The Stoics saw something different. Power belongs to the one who speaks only when necessary. This lesson can be seen in the life of Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman admired for his unwavering character. In a political world filled with dramatic speeches, secret alliances, and endless persuasion, Cato earned respect because his words were measured. He did not rush to answer every accusation or defend himself against every rumor. He understood a truth that many people still ignore. The more desperate you are to explain yourself, the easier it becomes for others to control the conversation. Manipulative people thrive on emotional reactions. When they insult you, they are often not seeking truth. They are seeking movement. They want your anger, your frustration, your endless explanations. Once you begin defending yourself against every accusation, you are no longer leading the conversation. You are following it. Imagine someone throws a rope toward you. If you never grab it, they cannot pull you. Arguments work the same way. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every criticism deserves a reply. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Modern psychology supports this idea. Emotional arguments often escalate because both people become focused on winning rather than understanding. As emotions intensify, listening fades. Each response fuels the next, creating a cycle where neither side truly communicates. The Stoics interrupted that cycle with deliberate restraint. Silence gave them time to think. Silence protected them from saying words they would later regret. Silence denied manipulators the emotional fuel they sought. But silence does not mean weakness. There is an enormous difference between remaining silent because you are afraid and remaining silent because you have nothing to prove. The first comes from insecurity. The second comes from confidence. Marcus Aurelius rarely wasted energy trying to convince everyone that he was right. As emperor, he understood that endless arguments could consume the very time needed to govern wisely. Instead of chasing approval, he returned to his principles. That is why his private reflections continue to inspire people nearly 2,000 years later. He focused more on becoming a good man than appearing to be one. Now consider the modern world. Someone leaves a cruel comment beneath your work. Another person spreads a false rumor. A stranger insults you online without knowing anything about your life. Your first instinct may be to defend yourself immediately, to explain every detail, to prove them wrong. But ask yourself one question. Who benefits from this argument? If the answer is neither truth nor growth, perhaps the wisest response is no response at all. Silence has another remarkable quality. It reveals people. When you stop explaining yourself, those who genuinely care will seek understanding. Those who only wanted control often become frustrated. Why? Because manipulation depends on predictable reactions. When the reaction disappears, so does much of its power. Think about a calm lake again. When someone throws stones into still water, the ripples eventually disappear. The lake does not chase the stones. It simply returns to stillness. Your mind can do the same. Not every insult deserves residence in your thoughts. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every battle deserves your energy. The strongest people are not those who win every argument. They are those who know which arguments are beneath them. This does not mean avoiding difficult conversations. Stoicism never teaches cowardice. When truth, justice, or responsibility require you to speak, speak clearly. Speak honestly. Speak calmly. But never allow emotion to become the author of your words. There is a profound freedom in realizing that your peace does not depend on having the last word. Sometimes the final word is silence. Sometimes the greatest victory is walking away with your character intact. The next time someone tries to provoke you, imagine yourself as that quiet observer in the ancient marketplace. Listen more than you speak. Observe more than you react. Let your composure become stronger than their chaos. Because a calm mind is difficult to manipulate. But there is something even more valuable than silence. A resource so precious that every company, every advertisement, every social media platform, and every manipulative person is competing for it every single day. It is not your money. It is not your time. It is your attention. And whoever controls your attention begins to shape your life. To be continued in Lesson 4. Guard your attention like a fortress. Lesson 4. Guard your attention like a fortress. Imagine an ancient fortress standing on the edge of an empire. Its walls are thick enough to withstand invading armies. Watchtowers overlook every road leading to its gates. Guards remain alert, not because they expect danger every moment, but because they understand one timeless truth. A city is rarely conquered by brute force alone. It is often conquered because someone leaves the gate open. The Stoics believed your mind is much like that fortress. Every thought you entertain, every conversation you engage in, every image you repeatedly consume is either strengthening your walls or weakening them. Marcus Aurelius knew this well. Although he ruled an empire filled with endless demands, petitions, rumors, and political intrigue, he constantly reminded himself to protect the quality of his own thoughts. He understood that an emperor who lost control of his attention would soon lose control of his judgment. Today, the battle for your attention has become more intense than anything Marcus could have imagined. The moment you wake up, dozens of invisible hands reach toward your mind. A notification flashes across your screen. A headline promises outrage. A video claims to reveal shocking secrets. An advertisement insists you are incomplete without one more purchase. Someone else's opinion demands your emotional energy. Every second, something is asking, look at me, react to me, think about me. Most people never stop to ask a far more important question. Does this deserve my attention? Attention is the foundation of every decision you make. What you repeatedly focus on shapes your beliefs. Your beliefs shape your habits. Your habits shape your character. And your character ultimately shapes your destiny. This is why manipulation almost always begins with distraction. A manipulator rarely changes your values overnight. Instead, they slowly redirect your attention away from your goals, away from your peace, away from your purpose. Imagine a sailor crossing a vast ocean. His destination is clear. The stars guide him through the darkness. But every few minutes another ship calls for his attention. Come this way. Look over here. You're missing something. If he changes direction every time someone shouts, he will drift endlessly across the sea without ever reaching shore. Many people live exactly this way. They begin the day with intentions. By evening, they have spent hours consumed by arguments that never mattered, comparisons that stole their confidence, and distractions that quietly robbed them of progress. The Stoics warned against this long before smartphones existed. Epictetus taught that a disciplined mind chooses carefully what it allows inside. Not every idea deserves belief. Not every desire deserves pursuit. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Modern neuroscience offers a striking confirmation of this ancient wisdom. The human brain cannot maintain deep concentration while constantly switching focus. Every interruption leaves behind a mental residue, making it harder to think clearly and act intentionally. The result is not merely distraction, it is exhaustion. You may believe you are tired because you work too hard. In reality, you may simply have given your attention to too many things that never deserved it. Think about the last hour you spent scrolling without purpose. Did you finish feeling inspired? Or did you feel strangely restless? Perhaps you compared your life to carefully edited moments from strangers. Perhaps you absorbed fear without realizing it. Perhaps your own dreams became quieter while someone else's life became louder. Attention is like water. Where it flows, something grows. Feed resentment and resentment grows. Feed gratitude and gratitude grows. Feed discipline and discipline grows. Feed endless distraction, and your potential slowly withers. Musonius Rufus believed that the mind becomes stronger through deliberate practice, just as the body becomes stronger through exercise. Every moment you redirect your attention toward wisdom instead of noise, you strengthen an inner muscle that manipulators cannot easily weaken. Imagine two gardens. One gardener spends every day removing weeds, watering healthy plants, and protecting the soil. The other allows anything to grow without care. Months later, both gardens reflect the choices that were made. Your mind is no different. Every day, you are planting something. The question is whether you are planting peace or planting chaos. Practical Stoicism begins with simple habits. Before reaching for your phone each morning, spend a few moments in silence. Ask yourself, what truly deserves my energy today? Limit the voices you allow to influence your thinking. Read something timeless before consuming something temporary. Spend more time creating than reacting. Protect moments of uninterrupted focus as if they were sacred. Because they are. The greatest thinkers in history were not simply intelligent. They learned to direct their attention instead of surrendering it. Remember this, if someone can control what occupies your mind, they begin to influence the direction of your life. But when your attention belongs to you, your future belongs to you as well. So tonight, before you close your eyes, Ask yourself one honest question. Who or what owned my attention today? The answer may reveal who has been quietly shaping your life all along. Yet even a disciplined mind faces one final obstacle. There is an enemy more subtle than distraction, more dangerous than criticism, and more difficult to recognize because it lives within us. It is the ego, and until you understand it, you will always leave one gate of your fortress unguarded. Next lesson, defeat your ego before others use it against you. Lesson 5. Defeat your ego before others use it against you. There is an ancient story about a victorious Roman general returning home after a great battle. The streets overflow with celebration. Flowers are thrown into his path. Trumpets echo through the city. Thousands cheer his name as though he were more than human. To everyone watching, he appears unstoppable. But standing just behind him is a servant with a single responsibility. Throughout the triumph, the servant quietly whispers into the general's ear, "Remember, you are only a man." Whether every detail of this tradition occurred exactly as described is debated by historians, but the lesson behind it has endured for centuries. The Romans understood something profound. The greatest danger after victory is not your enemy. It is your ego. The Stoics carried this lesson into every part of life. They knew that while anger could cloud judgment and fear could weaken courage, ego could quietly destroy both without being noticed. Unlike fear, ego rarely feels uncomfortable. It feels justified. It tells you that you deserve special treatment, that criticism is an insult, that disagreement is disrespect, that admitting a mistake is weakness. And once ego begins making your decisions, manipulation becomes remarkably easy. Why? Because anyone who understands your ego understands your weaknesses. They know exactly which compliments will flatter you. They know which insults will provoke you. They know which comparisons will make you insecure. Your ego becomes the handle they use to move your emotions. Seneca observed that people often become prisoners of their own pride. The more desperately someone clings to status or reputation, the more fragile they become when those things are threatened. Imagine carrying a priceless glass vase everywhere you go. Every crowded room fills you with anxiety. Every accidental bump feels dangerous. You spend more time protecting the vase than enjoying your life. The ego works the same way. When your identity depends on appearing intelligent, you fear being corrected. When it depends on appearing successful, you fear failure. When it depends on always being admired, you fear rejection. Soon, your life is no longer guided by wisdom. It is guided by protection. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that fame was temporary. He reflected on how many once celebrated rulers had already been forgotten by history. Their statues crumbled, their names faded. The applause that once seemed eternal disappeared into silence. If even emperors could not hold on to public admiration forever, why should anyone build their identity upon it? This perspective gave Marcus extraordinary freedom. He no longer needed every decision to impress people. He needed it only to be right. Now think about the modern world. How many arguments begin because someone feels their pride has been wounded? A simple disagreement becomes a personal attack. Constructive advice becomes humiliation. An honest conversation becomes a battle to protect one's image. The issue is no longer truth. It is ego. Social media magnifies this problem. People carefully build identities they feel obligated to defend. Every criticism feels like an attack on who they are. Every comparison becomes a threat. Every success of another person quietly whispers, "You're falling behind." The Stoics would ask a different question. Who are you when nobody is watching? That answer matters far more than any public image. Diogenes, though not a Stoic, deeply influenced later philosophers through his fearless rejection of vanity and social status. He cared little for appearances and challenged powerful people simply by refusing to pretend that wealth or prestige made someone truly superior. His life reminds us that freedom begins where pretense ends. Imagine walking through life with nothing to prove. Someone praises you. You accept it with gratitude, but do not become dependent on it. Someone criticizes you. You examine whether it contains truth, then let the rest pass without resentment. Someone succeeds beyond your expectations. Instead of envy, you feel inspiration. That is a person whose ego no longer controls them. Such a person becomes extraordinarily difficult to manipulate, because insults cannot easily provoke them. Flattery cannot easily seduce them. Comparison cannot easily discourage them. Their worth no longer depends on another person's opinion. How do we cultivate this strength? Begin by questioning your reactions. The next time criticism hurts, ask yourself, is my character being threatened or only my pride? The next time someone praises you, ask, am I becoming attached to this approval? The next time you make a mistake, admit it quickly. Not because failure feels good, but because humility strengthens what pride weakens. The Stoics believed that every mistake honestly acknowledged becomes a teacher. Every mistake denied becomes a prison. There is immense strength in saying, I was wrong. Only a confident person can do it without fear. Only a wise person understands that admitting error does not diminish character. It refines it. Remember this. The manipulator searches for your ego because it is the easiest doorway into your emotions. Close that door. Let humility become your shield. When you no longer need to appear superior, no one can use superiority against you. When you no longer fear looking imperfect, perfection loses its power over you. And once your ego no longer commands your life, another remarkable transformation begins. You stop trying to control everything around you and start mastering the only thing that has ever truly belonged to you, your own mind. Next lesson, master what you can control and release the rest. Lesson 6, master what you can control and release the rest. Imagine a sailor crossing the Mediterranean Sea during the height of the Roman Empire. The sky is clear when the journey begins. Gentle waves carry the ship forward, and a cool breeze fills the sails. Everything appears predictable. Then, without warning, the horizon darkens. Clouds gather. The wind changes direction. Lightning tears across the sky. Within moments, the sea becomes violent. The sailor has two choices. He can stand on the deck screaming at the storm, demanding that the waves obey him, or he can tighten the sails, steady the rudder, and focus on what remains within his control. Only one of those choices gives him any chance of reaching the shore. This simple image captures one of the most powerful ideas in all of Stoicism. The world will never obey your wishes, but your response can obey your wisdom. Epictetus built his philosophy upon this truth. Born into slavery, he understood better than most that many parts of life lie beyond our control. He could not choose where he was born. He could not choose how others treated him. Yet he discovered something extraordinary. No one could force him to surrender his judgment. No one could decide his character. No one could steal the freedom of his inner mind unless he willingly handed it over. That realization transformed a former slave into one of history's greatest teachers. His students came from every corner of Roman society. Some were wealthy, some were soldiers, some were politicians, yet all arrived carrying the same invisible burden. They wasted enormous energy trying to control things that had never belonged to them. 2,000 years later, very little has changed. People try to control how others see them. They try to control every outcome. They try to control the future. They try to control whether everyone likes them. They try to control the opinions of strangers on the internet. And when reality refuses to cooperate, frustration grows into anxiety. Think about how much suffering comes from fighting battles that cannot be won. You cannot control whether someone misunderstands your intentions. You cannot control whether people gossip about you. You cannot control unexpected setbacks. You cannot control the weather, the economy, or the passage of time. Yet many people spend their lives arguing with reality itself. Marcus Aurelius saw this every day as emperor. Despite his wisdom, he could not stop wars from beginning. He could not prevent disease from spreading through the empire. He could not stop trusted friends from disappointing him. He could not prevent death from touching those he loved. But he understood that every moment spent resisting reality was a moment stolen from wise action. He accepted what he could not change, so he could fully devote himself to what he could. Modern psychology reaches a similar conclusion. Researchers often describe how emotional distress grows when people become trapped in rumination, replaying events they cannot change while imagining different outcomes that no longer exist. The mind becomes a courtroom where yesterday is put on trial again and again. The verdict never changes, but peace keeps getting postponed. The Stoics refused to live this way. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" they asked, "What is the wisest thing I can do now?" Notice how that question shifts your attention. It moves you away from helplessness toward responsibility. Imagine carrying two heavy bags. One contains everything you can influence: your choices, your habits, your attitude, your honesty, your discipline. The other contains everything outside your control: other people's opinions, their emotions, their decisions, the past, the future. Every morning, most people pick up both bags. By evening, they wonder why they feel exhausted. The Stoic carries only one, not because life is easier, because his burden is lighter. This lesson becomes especially important in relationships. Someone may choose to leave. Someone may betray your trust. Someone may never appreciate your efforts. You cannot force love. You cannot demand loyalty. You cannot negotiate genuine respect. What you can control is whether bitterness becomes your identity. You can choose dignity instead of revenge, growth instead of resentment, peace instead of endless regret. That choice belongs to you, always. Here is a simple practice inspired by Stoic wisdom. Whenever anxiety appears, pause and divide the situation into two columns. In the first column, write everything you can directly influence. In the second, write everything you cannot. Then focus every ounce of your energy on the first column. Ignore the second. At first, this feels difficult. Soon it becomes liberating. Eventually, it becomes your way of life. Because every moment spent chasing control over the uncontrollable is a moment stolen from the life you could actually build. Remember the sailor. He never commands the wind. He masters the sails. He never argues with the sea. He learns to navigate it. That is why storms make him wiser instead of weaker. Perhaps the greatest freedom a human being can experience is realizing that peace does not require perfect circumstances. It requires a disciplined perspective. When you stop demanding that reality obey your desires, reality loses its power to disturb your soul. And yet, even those who master this principle often overlook one final obstacle. An obstacle so ordinary that it hides inside our daily routines. It whispers, "You can begin tomorrow. Just this once won't matter. You'll change when the time is right." It is the quiet voice of procrastination and comfort. And if you cannot defeat it, no amount of wisdom will ever become action. Next lesson, discipline is the ultimate form of freedom. Lesson 7, discipline is the ultimate form of freedom. There is a common belief that discipline is a prison. People imagine rigid schedules, endless sacrifice, and a life without joy. They hear the word discipline and picture chains wrapped around their freedom. The Stoics saw something entirely different. They believed that discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is its foundation. Imagine two men standing at the edge of a forest. The first follows every impulse that enters his mind. If he feels tired, he rests. If he feels angry, he lashes out. If he desires comfort, he abandons his responsibilities. His emotions become his master. The second man also feels temptation. He also feels fear. He also feels laziness. But instead of obeying every passing emotion, he pauses and asks one question: will this decision make me stronger tomorrow? Years pass. The first man becomes trapped by habits he once believed were harmless. The second becomes the architect of his own character. The difference was never talent. It was discipline. Musonius Rufus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, believed that philosophy should never remain an intellectual exercise. Wisdom meant nothing if it was not practiced daily. He taught that the soul becomes strong through repeated action, just as the body becomes strong through repeated training. You cannot think your way into courage. You must practice courageous choices. You cannot read your way into self-control. You must exercise it every day. The Stoics understood a truth that modern psychology now supports. Habits shape identity. Every small action sends a message to your mind about the kind of person you believe yourself to be. When you keep your word to yourself, confidence quietly grows. When you repeatedly break promises to yourself, self-doubt grows just as quietly. This is why manipulation often succeeds where discipline is weak. Someone offers immediate pleasure. Someone encourages shortcuts. Someone says, "You deserve to relax today. You can start tomorrow." The words sound comforting, but they slowly build a life of dependence instead of freedom. Marcus Aurelius faced this battle every morning. As emperor, he could have remained in the comfort of his palace. Instead, he reminded himself that he had been born to fulfill a purpose, not to pursue endless comfort. He wrote about rising from bed to perform the work that nature required of him, not because he always felt motivated, but because duty mattered more than temporary feelings. That lesson speaks directly to us today. How many dreams disappear because people wait until they feel ready? How many books remain unwritten? How many businesses remain ideas? How many healthy relationships are neglected? How many talents fade because comfort whispers louder than purpose? The Stoics never waited for perfect motivation. They acted according to principle. Imagine a blacksmith forging a sword. Each strike of the hammer seems insignificant. One blow changes very little, but thousands of strikes shape ordinary metal into something strong enough to withstand battle. Characters forge the same way. One disciplined morning, one honest decision, one difficult conversation, one temptation resisted, one promise kept. None of these moments seem extraordinary. Together they create an extraordinary life. There will always be days when discipline feels difficult. That is precisely why it is valuable. Anyone can act when circumstances are easy. Wisdom appears when circumstances are not. The next time your mind whispers, "I'll do it later," pause and ask yourself, who benefits if I delay becoming the person I was meant to be? Certainly not you. Comfort has stolen more dreams than failure ever has. Failure teaches. Comfort persuades you that growth can wait. It cannot. The life you want is built through today's decisions, not tomorrow's intentions. So begin with something small. Wake up when you promised. Finish the task you have been avoiding. Keep one commitment to yourself before seeking the approval of anyone else, because every act of discipline strengthens the one thing manipulators fear most: a person who no longer depends on emotions to determine their actions. When discipline becomes your habit, freedom becomes your reward. And yet, there is one final realization that transforms all the lessons you've learned so far. It is not about controlling others. It is not about becoming emotionally cold. It is about discovering a quiet strength that no circumstance can ever take away. That is where our next lesson begins. Next lesson: build an inner fortress no one can enter. Lesson 8. Build an inner fortress no one can enter. Imagine standing before one of Rome's greatest fortresses. Its walls rise high above the earth, weathered by countless storms. Generations of soldiers have defended it. Invaders have tested it. Time itself has tried to break it. Yet it still stands, not because it has never been attacked, but because its foundation was built long before the first battle arrived. The Stoics believed your character should be exactly like that fortress. Most people spend their lives strengthening what others can see: their appearance, their reputation, their possessions, their status. Very few strengthen what matters most: their inner world. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. As emperor, he lived surrounded by luxury, yet he reminded himself repeatedly that external things could disappear overnight. Wealth could be lost, power could be taken, friends could betray him. Even the empire itself would one day fade. If his peace depended on those things, then his peace was always temporary. Instead, he built his life upon something no army could conquer: his character. That is the Stoic fortress. Modern life constantly encourages the opposite. People build identities around careers, relationships, followers, recognition. When those things disappear, their identity collapses with them. The Stoics asked a different question. If everything outside you vanished tomorrow, who would you still be? That question is uncomfortable. But it is also liberating. Because the answer reveals whether your strength comes from within or from circumstances that can change at any moment. Imagine a mighty oak tree during a violent storm. The wind tears away its leaves. Branches crack. Rain lashes against its trunk. Yet its roots remain buried deep beneath the earth. When the storm finally passes, the tree still stands. The Stoic does not pray for a life without storms. He grows deeper roots. Those roots are built through daily honesty, self-control, gratitude, courage, justice, wisdom. Every time you choose principle over comfort, another root grows deeper. Every time you keep your integrity despite pressure, your fortress becomes stronger. Remember this: people can insult your reputation. They cannot touch your character unless you abandon it yourself. Before moving on, ask yourself, am I building walls that impress people or foundations that protect my soul? Because only one of them will remain when life begins to shake. And once your inner fortress is built, you discover a surprising truth. The strongest people are not those who fight every battle. They are those who know exactly which battles deserve their energy. Lesson 9. Choose your battles like a Stoic. Watch two fires burning in a forest. The first is fed by every fallen branch. It grows larger until it consumes everything around it. The second burns only where it is needed. It gives warmth. It gives light. It never destroys the forest. Your attention and energy work the same way. Many people are exhausted not because life is difficult, but because they fight every argument, every insult, every misunderstanding, every opinion, every criticism, every rumor. They mistake constant reaction for strength. The Stoics called this slavery. Seneca warned that anger often punishes the person who carries it more than the person who caused it. Think about how much energy one argument can steal. A 5-minute disagreement can occupy your thoughts for 5 days. The other person has already moved on, yet you continue replaying imaginary conversations inside your mind. Who is truly suffering? Not them. You. Manipulators understand this. They know that if they can occupy your thoughts, they occupy your life. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents an unnecessary argument, a stranger's opinion, a jealous coworker, an insulting comment online, a family member who refuses to change. Year after year, the backpack grows heavier. Then one day you realize you never had to carry those stones. You picked them up voluntarily. The Stoic learns to put them down, not because he is weak, because he knows where his strength is needed. Justice deserves courage. Truth deserves honesty. Family deserves patience. Purpose deserves discipline. But meaningless conflict deserves nothing. Every unnecessary battle steals energy from there. Battles that truly matter. Ask yourself before reacting, will this matter 1 year from now? If not, protect your peace. Walk away. Silence is often the loudest answer wisdom can give. Because every battle you refuse to fight leaves you stronger for the battles that cannot be avoided. And after mastering your battles, only one final lesson remains. The lesson that ties every Stoic principle together. The lesson that makes manipulation almost impossible. Lesson 10. Become the author of your own mind. There is one freedom that no emperor can grant, no government can guarantee, no enemy can steal. It is the freedom to govern your own mind. Everything we have explored leads to this single truth. The pause before reacting. Freedom from approval. The power of silence. Guarding your attention. Mastering your ego. Focusing only on what you control. Living with discipline. Building an inner fortress. Choosing your battles wisely. Each lesson is a stone. Together, they build a mind that cannot easily be manipulated. Imagine your life 10 years from today. Someone insults you. You remain calm. Someone praises you. You remain humble. Someone betrays you. You choose wisdom instead of revenge. Someone tries to control you through fear. You recognize the trap before it closes. Not because life has become easier, because you have become stronger. Marcus Aurelius never claimed he was perfect. Every day he reminded himself to return to virtue. Again and again and again. That is the Stoic path. Not perfection. Practice. Not never falling. Always rising. Every morning gives you another opportunity to reclaim your mind. Every conversation gives you another opportunity to choose wisdom. Every challenge gives you another opportunity to strengthen your character. Remember this one final image. A sculptor stands before a rough block of marble. With every careful strike, unnecessary stone falls away. He is not adding greatness. He is revealing it. The Stoics believed your character is the same. Every act of courage removes fear. Every act of discipline removes weakness. Every act of honesty removes illusion. Every act of wisdom reveals the person you were always capable of becoming. One day, people will wonder why you cannot be manipulated. They will think you possess some hidden secret. But the truth is much simpler. You stopped allowing the world to decide who you are. You became the guardian of your own thoughts. And once your mind belongs to you, no one else can ever truly control your life. The greatest victory is not over another person. It is over the version of yourself that once surrendered peace for approval, fear, anger, and distraction. And that is the Stoic mindset that makes you impossible to manipulate.